I had auditioned the day before. I really wanted it really badly, and I walked into the audition, and there were so many girls, and I remember just thinking, oh boy.
It was just a real
And once
problem.
her gates opened, then it was
I
just...
couldn't shut it off. You couldn't even, I didn't plug it, I didn't, no.
Everyone thinks Jennifer Aniston has the perfect life: fame, beauty, money, and success. But what if the truth is much darker? Behind the smile America fell in love with is a life filled with heartbreak, public humiliation, and quiet suffering that most people never talk about. From a painful childhood to brutal career rejection, to watching her marriage collapse in front of the entire world, to struggling privately with infertility while being judged non-stop, Jennifer Aniston's life has been far more traumatic than anyone wants to admit. This is not the fairy tale Hollywood sold you. This is the real story of how fame didn't save her, and may have made everything hurt even more. At 56, Jennifer Aniston reveals the dark secrets of Friends that you don't know. At 56, Jennifer Aniston has begun speaking more honestly about the hidden emotional weight behind the worldwide success of Friends. And the truth is far darker than fans ever imagined. While Friends looked joyful and effortless on screen, Jennifer has revealed that the pressure behind the scenes was intense. Filming schedules were exhausting, with long days under bright studio lights and constant audience expectations. As the show grew into a global phenomenon, so did the loss of privacy. Jennifer admitted she struggled with being watched, judged, and talked about constantly, even when the cameras stopped rolling. She has also spoken about how fame magnified her personal insecurities. Every hairstyle, relationship, and body change became headline news, leaving little room to simply be human. During those years, Jennifer quietly battled anxiety and loneliness, feelings that were hidden behind Rachel Green's confident smile. Another rarely discussed reality was the fear of life after Friends. Despite massive success, the cast worried about being permanently typecast. Jennifer later admitted that walking away from such comfort was emotionally terrifying. Today, she looks back with gratitude, but also honesty. Friends gave her everything, yet it also took a silent toll she's only now fully acknowledging. Friends had a defining and irreversible impact on Jennifer Aniston's career, shaping not only her professional success, but also her public identity in ways that were both empowering and restrictive. When she was cast as Rachel Green in 1994, the show did not simply give her a breakthrough role. It transformed her into one of the most recognizable faces in the world. Virtually overnight, she went from a struggling actress to a global television star, and that level of exposure brought opportunities she could never have accessed otherwise. On the positive side, Friends provided her with stability, creative growth, and an extraordinary professional platform. The show's success allowed her to hone her craft in front of a live audience over 10 seasons, something she has said was invaluable as an actor. Working consistently with the same cast also created a rare sense of safety and camaraderie. Aniston has often spoken warmly about the bond between the 6 main actors, describing the set as a place where she felt supported and understood. She once said, "We genuinely loved each other. There was no competition. We were all going through this experience together." Financially and professionally, Friends gave her leverage. By the later seasons, she and her co-stars famously negotiated equal pay, reaching $1 million per episode. This not only secured her financial future, but also positioned her as a powerful figure in the industry, opening doors to film roles, production opportunities, and long-term influence in Hollywood. Her transition into movies during and after the show romantic comedies, dramas, and later producing, was made possible largely because of the visibility and credibility Friends gave her. However, the experience was not without its downsides. The intense fame that came with the show was overwhelming, especially in the earlier seasons. Aniston has described how suddenly losing anonymity was emotionally jarring. She could no longer go anywhere without being recognized, photographed, or scrutinized. At one point, she admitted, "I didn't know how to protect myself. I didn't know how to separate who I was from what people thought I was." This constant attention blurred the line between her personal life and her public persona, a problem that only intensified as the show's popularity grew. On set, the demanding schedule also took a toll. Filming a multi-camera sitcom required long hours, rehearsals, and a relentless pace year after year. While the environment was largely positive, it was still exhausting. Aniston has spoken about how she sometimes felt emotionally drained, especially when personal struggles coincided with the pressure to perform comedy at a high level every week. The expectation to always be on, cheerful, and funny could be difficult when real life was anything but. Another lasting challenge was typecasting. Rachel Green became so iconic that it threatened to overshadow Aniston herself. For years, she struggled to be seen as anything other than Rachel, particularly in the eyes of critics. She has acknowledged that breaking away from that image took deliberate effort, saying that after Friends, she felt she had to prove she could do more than one kind of role. While audiences loved her, the same familiarity sometimes limited how seriously she was taken as an actress. Perhaps the most frustrating consequence of Friends was how it intensified media intrusion into her personal life. Her relationships, especially her marriage and later divorce from Brad Pitt, were endlessly linked back to her role on the show, as though Rachel Green and Jennifer Aniston were the same person. This association became emotionally taxing and reinforced a public narrative she had no control over. In the end, Friends was both a gift and a burden. It gave Jennifer Aniston unprecedented success, lifelong friendships, and a permanent place in television history. But it also cost her privacy, simplicity, and years of fighting to be seen beyond one character. She has reflected on this duality with clarity and gratitude, acknowledging that while the experience was overwhelming at times, it ultimately gave her the foundation to build a long, evolving career on her own terms. Her marriage to Brad Pitt, which began in 2000, was widely idealized. They were framed as Hollywood's perfect couple, and Aniston has said that she genuinely believed the relationship was solid. When their marriage ended in 2005, the collapse was sudden from her perspective and emotionally shattering. She later described that period as one where her private grief became public property. "It felt like my world cracked open," she said in later interviews, reflecting on that time, explaining that she was not only dealing with heartbreak, but with the shock of seeing her marriage dissected daily in headlines. One of the most painful aspects for her was how quickly the narrative moved beyond her control. Almost immediately after the separation, Brad Pitt's relationship with Angelina Jolie became a media obsession. Aniston has said that discovering intimate details of that new relationship through the press was deeply wounding. Referring to a magazine interview Angelina Jolie gave shortly after, Aniston said, "There was stuff printed there that was definitely from a time when I was unaware that it was happening. I felt that was a little inappropriate." At that moment, she had implied, made her feel blindsided and exposed, as though her private life had been rewritten without her consent. Despite public assumptions, Aniston has been careful not to accuse Brad Pitt of cruelty or malice. In fact, she has repeatedly pushed back against the idea that there was a villain. "Nobody did anything wrong," she said years later, emphasizing that relationships can simply fall apart. At the same time, she acknowledged that the emotional aftermath was traumatic. She described going through the divorce as a period of deep vulnerability, saying she felt disoriented and stripped of stability, especially because she had no space to grieve privately. What intensified the trauma was the cultural framing of the situation. Aniston became labeled the woman left behind, while Jolie was cast as the other woman, a narrative Aniston never endorsed but could not escape. This relentless comparison haunted her for years. She has said, "I didn't feel protected. I felt like I was the subject of a soap opera." The constant speculation made it difficult for her to heal, because every step forward was overshadowed by reminders of what she had lost. Her later marriage to Justin Theroux also ended in divorce, and while it was far quieter, it reinforced her sense that public expectations around her relationships were suffocating. By then, she had grown more guarded. Looking back on her romantic history as a whole, Aniston has spoken candidly about how these experiences reshaped her emotionally. "I've had my fair share of heartbreak," she said, adding that each breakup forced her to rebuild herself from a place of exhaustion rather than hope. Perhaps the clearest indication of how deeply these experiences affected her is how she speaks about love now. Rather than bitterness, there is caution and self-protection. "I think we get into relationships thinking they'll complete us," she reflected. "And then we learn they're meant to complement us, not save us." That realization came at a cost. The repeated public endings taught her to separate her identity from romantic validation, but only after years of emotional strain. Jennifer Aniston's trauma was not rooted in betrayal alone, but in the collision between private heartbreak and public consumption. The end of her marriage to Brad Pitt, and the way Angelina Jolie was woven into that story by the media, left scars that took years to heal. Yet she has chosen not to define herself by resentment. Instead, she has reframed her pain as growth, once saying simply, "I don't regret my life. Everything led me to where I am now."